So hello and welcome to the Expat Pod. My name is James, your host, and today I'm joined by Omar. Omar, you're originally from Egypt and you've moved to the US. So you want to expand a bit more about your your where you're from and why you chose to do your move.
Of course. Thank you, James, for having me here. I'm really excited to have this conversation with you. As you said, yeah, I'm from Egypt, and I moved to the US here for college about 5 years ago, and that's when I was like 17. Now, when I'm like 22, I can look back and see a lot of change in the 17-year-old who came to the US for the first time. Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, what a great introduction. We'll get into the podcast. So hello and welcome to section 1 of the podcast, a lot getting there. So Omar, you mentioned you're from Egypt and you moved to Arizona. What was that like in terms of what was your original driver to leave home and go so far away to America?
When I was in high school, really, my goal was to study in the US. Like, I just knew that this is the culture I needed to expand. I had so much passion, and I knew my potential is there. At least I want to try. I saw it as a very hard challenge, and I wasn't afraid from the challenge, more like excited for it, encouraged, drive. So yeah, that was my main goal. I was like, okay, I need to find a college in the US financially able to cover it. So I needed like a proper scholarship for that. So that's where the application process. I needed to start that early to apply for all these scholarships. And not gonna lie, it wasn't that easy. It was very disappointing, getting all these rejection letters. Even if you get accepted, rejection for the scholarship, and that kind of like shuts you down a little bit, that you are good enough, but it's the financial aspect that you have nothing to control over that. And so until the University of Arizona got me the one shot I needed, and I was like, okay, this is my goal, this is my sign, and I went forward with the process.
So when you were applying for the colleges, were you looking for a specific course? Was it a specific subject you wanted to study?
Absolutely. I was driven to, as you said, like, I don't want to hint that I was just wanted to do anything in the US. No, I was having some sort of, I wanted to drive into a scientific type of major. So my plans were narrowed either around pharmacy, where I am right now, or something that has to do with biomedical engineering. It was my second best option. I'll be honest with you, I should have done more research of how a career wise, but as I said, maybe my mind wasn't clear enough on what to research at, but more of just getting a good type of major that can get me to live abroad,
Yeah. And how long before you kind of left home were you looking at this stuff? What age were you? Like, was it 2 years before, 3 years before?
I would say you should be planning ahead, more like finishing up some requirements a couple of years ahead. So if you have to do SATs, all the US colleges would have desired that back then. Your GPAs, all that stuff, you have to look at the perspective of like, okay, I need to start doing that a couple of years ahead. But the application process wise, I started that in my senior year of high school. So more about like my first semester of my senior year. This is where most of the load is, probably in the before Thanksgiving as well. So I'm talking about the first couple of months where you apply for all these scholarships. And after that, it's by the past winter, or by the spring break is when you get all the responses. And we're like, okay, now I can set an idea. It's by April where you're like, all right, I have an idea where I should be going. You talk to your mates and you see whichever is going. And actually, that's another big story. The me knowing about this place was so out of coincidence that I was sitting one time with dinner with one of my random friends in a group setting, and we were just, as I said, we were discussing, what's your plans for next year? and this and that. And he mentioned that he's applying to this random university in Arizona. I never heard of it. And he told me, oh, they're providing good scholarships and stuff like that. And at this point, this is where I was getting all these rejection emails of scholarships. So I was like, okay, might as well just apply for that. And I applied, and it got me here.
Oh wow! Did your friend also get a scholarship as well?
Absolutely, yes. He's actually my current roommate.
Because it might be quite annoying if you applied and saw this scholarship.
Oh no, that would be very heartbreaking. I wouldn't even tell him that I got in, But no, actually, he has been my best friend for the last 5 years. He's actually my current roommate. So it's a nice coincidence,
Wonderful, yeah. It kind of helps with the homesickness stuff, which we'll get into in section 2, I'm sure. On the application then, so how many places did you apply for? Was it as many as you could find, or do you have to pay for applications as well, from what I remember?
Yeah. So I remember the issue was the application process fees, and they were a little bit hefty. So it was like a kind of sum that you wouldn't want to be thrown around all the time. So I had to be very precise somehow. At the same time, I used to talk to my father back then, and he used to give me some room. It depended on, like, you have to present an idea, a plan. This place is good. They're offering that. Okay, their fee is this. So you have to have some sort of idea of what this university is unique about. And he was very supportive, not gonna lie. And my mom was also very supportive with it. They would peer review any essays I would write, and that's what I found helpful. I took advantage of back then. There was an application that I used to so you would pay some sort of application fee for the service, and you would write one essay or one resume, and it would expand it all to all the universities that are signed up with the same service.
Oh wow, okay, that's quite useful. Is that still existing?
I am not sure. A lot of changes happened past COVID. I'm talking because my sister personally tried using that, but it wasn't that successful with her.
Oh, that's unfortunate for her. But did she end up getting to the US herself in the end, or?
No. She was in the stage of the 2020 class where everything was kind of like rough and unaware. That's another thing as well. Like, I came 1 year before COVID started, so I feel like that was also very lucky.
Yeah, definitely. Although I'm sure we'll get into what it was like to live in COVID during that time in the next section. But going back to before you left, then were there any other countries you were looking at? So were you looking at any other places to study globally, or was it just the US?
My second option was the UK. I just the reason because that is that we got a lot of reps coming to our high school from a lot of university colleges in the UK, and they were very promising. And the one thing though that they offered international students is that a gap year at the beginning, more of a way for them to get into the system. And so I did not find that as an advantage, because you would be paying full tuition, but you're going to be not fully admitted yet. They're prepping you to get in there. And I was like, well, I don't need that. It's you're going to be competing with the next class. And it wasn't some sort of a guaranteed thing. So I was like, it's not that appealing if it's not guaranteed,
Yeah, completely. Well, that's a very interesting point. Were the scholarships a similar level as well, though, between both the UK and US when you were looking into it?
The US system is very fair in some point. So what I love is that most universities here, they have an in-state tuition for in-state students and an out-state tuition for out-state students. And for international students like me, they were considered out-state. They didn't have their own department where they were like, okay, you guys have to pay this amount because you're international. No, they considered it as out-state. So that's kind of fair. I like that. You were just as somebody else in California. They're paying the same thing. And the scholarship was more of a percentage. So I would say it was mostly almost a full ride. So I found that as a very potential type of thing going, way much more than the scholarships offered from universities in the UK. I just think that the UK universities had a lower overall tuition, but their scholarship percentage was way much lower. So you would end up paying a little bit more at the end,
Completely. Oh yeah, well, for me it was fine because being British and going to university in the UK, it's not free, but I know it's significantly less than the US, but a lot more than the rest of Europe, which is unfortunate.
And the currency-wise as well, you have to put that in mind that if I'm changing from from my country's currency to the US, it's less costly than the English pound.
It's a very true fact. You have to think about this stuff before moving for sure. When you then got accepted to Arizona, did the university kind of help you find accommodation? Did you go into halls?
So what the university in order for you to start your F1 visa, which is a student visa application, they have to send you an I-20, which is basically saying that, hey, okay, this guy is actually gonna be studying with us. All right, so some sort of governmental assurance that this institution is verifying that he is gonna be part of this program. And once you get that started, you move forward on with your visa, and the process becomes easier. If you're applying for an F1 visa and the university sent you an I-20, you're set to go. You should never be worried about anything at all. Okay, yeah. So accommodation wise, there was always like advertisements. I would get like tons of emails every single day from my university offering orientation services, planning ahead for living in dorms and all of that. I just personally did not love the idea of living in dorms. It's more of these tiny shared rooms, and as a boy that lived alone when I was younger, I was like, hey, no, I'm not ready for that. Yeah, it's like it's something that a lot of people do, and mostly they do it from some aspect of safety,
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't mind sharing a house with people or an apartment, but the same bedroom I find a bit odd. I'm not 10 years old with my brother, So
I didn't even have a brother, man. I never had that experience.
Yeah, exactly. So for me, it seems a bit odd because you kind of there's no personal space, there's no like privacy. It's very much when I've not been to a US university or done that experience, but from what we get exposed to in the media, all through like popular television and film, it seems a bit intrusive, perhaps. But yeah,
it is. I remember I didn't even have to check them out in person. I was going through the pictures, and it kind of gave me an image. I was like, "Oh, mommy, I don't want to stay there." And she was supporting that idea. She was like, "Yeah, you're not gonna stay there." And it was so easy. We were on Google Maps, and we looked around for apartments. We chose something randomly next to the college, and I just decided staying there. We contacted them through email, and I advise that I would advise to if you go to the US and you don't really want to live in a dorm, depending on the state though, because just to mention for anybody that doesn't know the University of Arizona, it's in a city that's a university city. It's not a big state like it's not a big city like Chicago or Houston. No, this is just mostly everybody you meet here is going to that university, or they're coming for that university. Like during the summer, it's dead empty.
And then in the rest of your visa application, did you need to go to the embassy in Egypt before you moved, and what was that like?
It was an interesting experience because it was, well, since I was 17, I took the advantage of being still a dependent, so I had my father with me just in case they asked me any questions I had no answer to. But they kind of give you an idea about what questions to expect. The application is the heavy part. It's a time-consuming part. I would just advise, and from when I renewed my visa recently, I would definitely advise to never lie on your application, and to make sure that whenever you're doing the interview for the US visa, is that you should never lie about that either, because what they do is they ask you a lot of questions about your application. They already see the answer in there, and they're asking you, and you say otherwise, they're waiting for any red flag to be like, no, what, this is sketchy, you know. But if your papers are right, if everything seems legit, they're like, all right, that's done, move on, cool, you know.
That's good. That's good advice for sure. What was when you applied for the universities? Obviously, Egypt, English isn't your first language, right? So did you have to do a English language test before moving to the US, or Spanish maybe? Do you have to know that?
Oh yeah. I remember I was in international school the whole time. But as you mentioned, yeah, I had to do my SATs. That was just a general requirement. But I had to do an English TOEFL test. And I think that was just a requirement before COVID for English, like check out your English proficiency. And it was easy. I feel like if you've already have the consideration to go to the US, you already should be in an American diploma, high school type of degree, and that kind of is setting you up in some way to study abroad, you know.
And when you were learning English then in international school, was it British English or American English?
No, it was American English. We had my school was very divided. They had the British system, the IGCSE for anybody interested into that field, and they had the American diploma system. So the American diploma system is more based upon the GPA of all your current classes and a tiny percentage of external exams that are just your SATs, and if you need to take any English tests like the TOEFL, and so yeah, you probably know definitely much more about the British system.
But it's more about the language itself, in terms of if you learn British English from a vocabulary or a spelling point of view, because there's quite a lot of differences. And now, as when I moved abroad, I found that I had to be an ambassador for British English.
Oh, I definitely agree. Like I love that. I mean, I love the fact that I wish that our school would have been much more detailed. That they would have made those tiny differences in vocab and so on. I just don't think that they cared that much. So English is English, you know.
Was there anything else you needed to think about before moving abroad?
I just think you should always keep tabs on your living finances. So what I would advise that I should have done early on is that if you're moving to the US, a nice thing that all or most US universities do is that they offer for students to work on campus, for on-campus jobs. And that's something I got into on my third year of college, and I should have got into it in my freshman year, my first year. And that's something that it kind of changes everything. It just makes you a new type of person. Because personally, for someone that lived in an Arab country, I never worked a job when I was younger. And so having to start working, making your own money, it raises something in you. Personally, I messed up a lot in my first job. I had I wasn't good with timing. I could show up late and there was consequences. And now I'm like, okay, thank God there was consequences that put me back in my own place. You know, made me more dependable, made me increase my assets overall with time management and dealing with consequences and handling situations better.
Yeah, no, completely. It sounds like the soft skills developed through that experience, and it's great to have those during college when you're meant to be learning. So when you finish, you'll take it forward, which is, I guess, a great thing to have that kind of job opportunity whilst you're studying anyway, just even for those non-academic skills.
Uh-huh. Even as an international student, you're more some sort of obliged that you shouldn't be working outside the university limits. Otherwise, you're kind of jeopardizing your visa. Okay. Because your visa says you're an F1 student coming here to study. Okay, you don't want to be taken advantage and working a side job, and coming here getting a 4-year visa and just making money here, and you're actually not studying. And so, in order for them to go past that gray area, you're only allowed to be working as a part-time student in the institution you are with. And so that kind of brings an advantage, you're surrounded by other students who work in a job. It's legal, getting proper money out of it, and it helps. Like you can live financially off of that,
Oh, great! That's a great bit of advice, and if there's nothing more to add about before you left, we'll get into it in section 2. So welcome back and welcome to section 2 of the podcast, all about being there. So Omar, this is kind of initially your first impressions. So you've left home, you've gone with your friend. Did you fly together the same day, or did you take separate flights?
No, not really. My family came along here with me to set me up. As I mentioned earlier, I was going into the apartment I randomly found out on Google Maps. So actually getting in there, you gotta set up your own apartment, see what you guys need. I don't have a car either. I didn't have a car for a few years. So what transportation gonna be like? You have to. So that was something good that they were here with me at the beginning for a week, and I took advantage of that. I didn't meet my best friend until like a couple of weeks into school. He came later than I did, and but I was pretty set before my school date. One thing that I really a memory that could never leave my head ever is the first night my parents leaving to the airport and leaving me in my house, and I closed the door. And it suddenly all clicked. It just happened. It's starting now, and it's a weird feeling I can vividly explain, but it's just like, oh my God, this is reality now. Game on.
So was the week with your family? Did it feel like a vacation? Did it feel like it's not real? But then once they left and got on the plane home, what was that first 24 hours like? What did you do?
First 24 hours was just the one thing I could remember. As I woke up the next day and I was just leaving my apartment, I was like, oh my God, I left the door unlocked. And so I was just like the first mess up along the way. I actually cried as soon as my parents left. Even though it was like, oh my God, this is reality. Just seeing my mom crying, or my sisters emotional, that kind of got me emotional too. The first 24 hours overall, the first week was just steady. I did not move a lot. I did not go out a lot, but I loved exploring around. I took advantage of that, walking around on campus.
No, completely. And it's great to hear that you were so open with your emotions in terms of not people are, but nowadays people are becoming more honest with how they experience feelings and stuff. And yeah, it's a sad time, right? Your parents are going far away, but also far away in time as well. Whereas if you're in the same time zone but 6 hours away, it's still hard, but you can communicate more easily. Whereas you don't know what's going to happen for the next few weeks or years because you're literally at different ends of the day to each other.
No, I was going to add on to that. You are absolutely right. Like, I feel like, especially being the eldest of my siblings, that's a new experience for my parents to handle that. They have no idea how to. This boy is going far away. We don't know if that was the right decision or not. And I really feel that if I was in that position, it's going to be something I would be overthinking day and night. I would feel like along the years, it got easier overall. like back then, I used to, the first few months, I would be calling them every single day, once or twice, and then when the stories were the same, when they realized that they have a better image about how my day looks like, it's going on. It's the same cycle. He goes to school, comes back, goes to the gym, studies for a little bit, eats, sleeps. Next day, same thing. So they're kind of like, all right, I kind of have an idea what to do. My mom, though, in either way, it's like, I would always advise, if you would be an international student, is to give the most clear image to your parents about how your day is like. Otherwise, their mind is going to go astray, the worst case scenario. And you don't want that to happen. You're going to get 1,000 missed calls all day. They think that something bad is going on to you if you don't call, you don't text. So I used to be using Snapchat to record whatever I'm doing, some thought, the food I'm doing. I used to do that so many times. I had a passion for cooking. I started having a passion for cooking, and that was some sort of me communicating my struggles to them in a sarcastic way.
I mean, I think we had something similar. I did a daily blog. Every day I wrote kind of things I did that day. Most mundane things like, getting my my national ID card and stuff like that. I would just write it on my website, just like as a daily thing, from the summer till Christmas. And my parents would read that, and it would be, they knew what I was doing, and they found it fun, and they felt like on the journey.
Exactly. To them, you're the most, whatever you're doing, even if it's so mundane, it's the most interesting thing in the day.
I feel bad for them.
Yeah, it is.
Going into the culture of America, then. So you've left Egypt. Obviously, you went to international school. You might have had some exposure, or quite a lot of exposure, to American culture, just because of your
No, not really. I all the American culture I had was from TV shows and movies, and that was just it. I was in an all boys school, high school, so no interactions with girls at all. That was just a broad new college experience, having to go to share classes and everything with girls and get thoughts into them. All that stuff was I had an idea that's gonna happen. I saw that in TV shows. That's the only movies I would watch and everything. As a cultural difference, though, my only fear was like, if I don't keep this scholarship for the next year, I'm going home. So that was my main trajectory, is not to mess up my courses. And I was afraid that with the language barrier, that everybody around me is going to be smarter than me or one step ahead of me. And that was just my initial fear, Well,
obviously you're still there, so that didn't happen. But what was that like when you went to your first kind of meeting on campus? You moved a few weeks before. Were there international events you can go to, like mixers, or were you going to people on the same course as you? Or obviously you were in dorms, so it's different again.
No, that is true. One thing that I found very appealing is that they have an orientation for going on for a random group of students, but what they have special is an orientation for international students. Okay, and this is where I met a lot of friends that I can still call them friends to this day. Met them in orientation, and then the second day is that they group you out with the people in the same major. So anybody you join in the pharmacy field, international or not, you guys are, and you get to do your schedule and talk to other peers, And in my head, I had the trajectory that I didn't care too much about where you're from. Like, I'm here to be friends with everybody. I'm here to be. I'm trying to some sort of fit in, but not in a sad way, but more of like, I want to learn what this is an opportunity to learn more things rather than just sit to what you've been used to.
Completely. No, it's a very good way of putting it. One thing you can't control is where you're from. Like literally, day dot, or the moment you're born, is you've had zero control up until then, but then you kind of get more control. So it doesn't matter if you're born in Egypt or in the UK or in America or in South America or wherever. It's about who you are and how you then deliver yourself as a person, which is what's interesting. Which is kind of why I'm doing this podcast, because I'm meeting people from all over the world. we've all got the same kind of outlook in life of they want to go and travel and live abroad and have that same kind of desire to learn more things and staying curious, which for me is an exciting thing to think about, as opposed to you happen to be born in the same place. That's cool, but you didn't choose that. What you chose to be curious, and you chose to go and explore, which for me is a interesting
You
thing.
have to be multidimensional, you know. And as you said about yourself as well, like you have a certain job, and then you have something else on the side. You have the podcast, and you spend your time doing some edits here and there, and you talk to people, and that's kind of like, hey, I'm above average in many aspects of my life, you know, and that's the way you should be always focusing on, you know.
That's very true. Going into life in the States then, so after a few months of being there, what did it feel like? What was the cadence like? Was it what you expected? Were things different? What were the biggest struggles for you?
I was actually surprised with how smooth everything went for the first few months. Like, I was just more focused on the academic aspect. It was so funny to me because I did not really participate in too many. My week was so empty. Other than studying, it would be just studying, either working out, and then just watching TV. Sure, I would hang out with a couple of friends here and there, but compared to what I've done a few years after that, there was way much more exciting things that I've done. So, yeah, sure. Like, I would say that I was just eager to get to know more people, but I didn't have the chances. I didn't have the opportunities. I didn't know where to go. I didn't know what to do on a Friday night. You know, I was like, what should we do? Nothing. Can we just hang out with my friend, from back home? I don't know, something like that. So, I was more responsible. The one thing that, the academic pace was super fast that I had to keep up with it.
On the social side then, obviously, America is notorious for sororities, fraternities. What was your opinion of that when you first arrived? What was your exposure to that?
I didn't know what they were. I had no idea what that was. The only thing was like me watching back at night, and I would see this house playing music all the time and people walking in and out. So I was just curious, what is that place? And it's on university grounds. So I was like, is this part of the university or what's going on here? And then I was explained that these are fraternities and you have to rush to them. And I was like, And I used to go inside of them thinking that I could party with them until I got kicked out like 30 minutes in. Turns out like had no idea that you had to be part of the fraternity in order to go inside. I had no recollection of that. I didn't know, bro, sorry. You know, and I left. This is one time when me stepping out of my zone. I was like, yeah, let's find out what this is. And I walked inside. However, what surprises me is that it's understandable that if you're American and your father, for example, was part of that fraternity, or your family was part of that fraternity, and you come to college, I've seen and I've known a lot of my American friends that they would, that their parents supporting them to sororities, to be part of fraternities. Why? Because that's how they did it when they were in college, and that's how they met so much friends. And they're like, hey, you know what? I want that for you as well. However, a lot of international students are thinking like I am. Oh my God, this is where the party is at. I want to be part of that. If that's what I have to do, then I have to go and join them. However, it's just, I find it very morally inappropriate. You lose a lot of your self-respect in some sort of the process, whether it's by hazing on or along the way. And I feel on the time past right now, I would say that you can still get what you want of getting more social exposure to these events in other ways without having to jeopardize the self-respect part, you know.
Oh, what other ways would they be? So what other kind of options did you have rather than joining a fraternity and then going through the kind of rushing process?
I would say that well, if it's more about the trying to talk to people and meet people, then there are various events for you to handle them, either by going to international meetings or like diners. There was always like ongoing school events along the year. However, if you're talking about the party aspect, at the same time you wanna party and drink and all that, there was always, this is where the connections comes in. People that are older, they would be living in their own apartments and they would make their own house parties and so on and so on. And that's where I feel like I got more exposure to that later on, especially during COVID and so. And it was the connections that kept me more aware of the options. You can go here, you can go there, you can come here, this place, this, that. So this is where I feel is building the connections with people. And you only build that by constantly going and seeing them, either by, if you gotta have to go to every single party every single week just to build more and more connections, then be it, you don't have to drink, you don't have to do all the party stuff. But
how often were you going home when you first arrived? Did you go home once a year, twice a year? Were you able to kind of, would your family come to see you? What was the kind of cadence with that?
I used to travel back. My parents never actually came here. It would just be more expensive to pay for like a full person tickets for my whole family to come here rather than just me going back. I used to go back during the winter breaks and during the summer breaks, so probably twice a year. That kind of changed a little bit during COVID because like international flights were closed, and it was always the struggle of me not being able to come back inside, and that was just like something jeopardizing, and I didn't want to jeopardize that at all, for the sake of going back. I personally did not always like to go back, and I would just do it as a compromise type of thing to my parents. Why? Because I was like, I thought I had built my own empire or my own new world right now, and you don't want to. I always just had this fear that me going back is trying to set, like, reversing all the progress I've done. And that was just like, like a trigger to my head.
That's very interesting. And you said about COVID. What was that like in terms of being in the US? If you can draw parallels to what your family or friends back home were experiencing, or friends all over the world, what was it like from an experience point of view for you?
I personally enjoyed it. I don't mean it in a bad way, but like I didn't have the type of struggles my siblings had to do. My sisters had to deal with my parents cleaning every grocery can they would buy. I was like, I'm not gonna do that, So when you live on your own and you don't have somebody to be worrying about, the consequences only fall on you. Oh, you get sick, you're the one that's only going to get the disease. But back there, it's like it's more of a family thing, so you gotta be more considerate to people living with you. I used to live alone, so I didn't care that much. At the same time, I was struggling from the point of meeting new people. I was just gladly I was having the same friends. I already built a close group of friends where I can go see all the time. I feel like it was during the summer of first COVID where I was staying in Tucson for the first time, and I just felt boredom. I didn't have anything to do. I didn't have a job either, so it was just like nothing to do. I didn't have school, so it was genuinely, my days were the same. I didn't even have the chance to work out, so I would feel that was a complete waste of my time. And more than that, it was just so much free time. I didn't know what to do. Back when the semester started to go on again, this is where like I realized that people are going back, and really nobody cared so much about the COVID type of thing in the college area. So college really did not care about the college aspect, and that gave me an idea where like, well, if everybody around me doesn't care, then I'm gonna get the disease whether I want it or not, because probably everybody's gonna have it around me. And so this is where I started also, like, not proudly saying it, but like partied all the time during the COVID year.
I guess it all depends on where you are as well, because the US being so big, was Arizona different to California or other states were you aware of? How did that kind of feel?
Yeah, I did remember that California was having way much more bigger rates. personally, for me, I was just like more of a risking it week by week, and then when I realized I'm not getting sick, okay, so what? The worrying went down. I used to blame my best friend for talking to new people in his dorm, and I'll be like, bro, you shouldn't be talking to anybody, this and that, And a few months in, I was just like, yeah, like it's okay, like nothing really happens. And I was testing the fire until it burns me, and it kind of did not burn me. So I was like, okay, I'm just going ahead with it. And your radar in your head becomes less alert.
And were your classes online, or were they in person for that period of time as well? What did that change for you in terms of academically?
They were online, and I really enjoyed them being online. That's why you had more free time to do way much more other stuff like that. That's why I used to be over my other options. I'm not meeting anybody all week long except on the weekends, so might as well just go out. And being the online aspect is like, I'll be honest, things were easier. You didn't have to waste time going to class, coming from class, exhausted or not, and being online, you have way more room to navigate your own way. You could study on your own time. And as I said, it was the first year for the whole COVID experience, so nobody had any idea of what they're doing from the professor kind of aspect. So they were just trying new things on you, and they didn't know how the loopholes are in the system until later on. So you kind of got away from all that,
Yeah, could be quite fun testing the water, I suppose. How did you find the change then back to now? So I'm assuming do you have options to do your courses online, or are they all in class? What's the kind of post-COVID situation for you?
Well, the post-COVID situation is all online. Online is going to always be an option from here on. I don't think that's ever going to go away. I just think the possibility, or how often if it's offered, is decreasing along the years. Yeah, sure. For the first couple of years after COVID, every class had an online option where you can just watch it over Zoom or watch the recording later on. And personally, let's say in my pharmacy program, they used to require us to go to class, to this amount of classes in the semester, and by every semester, the requirement to go to classes increased until now. In my last semester now, I'm required to go to every single class. Not just me and anybody younger than I am. You know what I mean? So yeah, people younger than me are required to go to classes that I wasn't required to go to. I just feel that it's never gonna go away. Like the online option, the Zoom, all that, it's staying forever. It's a good thing and a bad thing at the same time, but it depends on.
It's the flexibility, I suppose. If you're sick, or if you're unwell, or if you've got commitments, you could dial in and do it from anywhere in the world. So I do it with work. I'm quite lucky that my job is hybrid, so I can be in the office, or I can be at home, or I could be at my parents' house, or I can be anywhere in the country as long as I log on and do my job. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, and I love that. I love that you're offered more technology to have variety, and as you said, like being more flexible. Like you're not jeopardizing either spending time with family or your work. You can still do both at the same time. Any interview, it could be done over Zoom now. I don't think in-person interviews are still happening. You can just figure them out through an online interview.
Well, completely. Yeah, I did for my recent job, which only just started. Really, I did both my interviews online, only because I couldn't get time off my other job to do them. So the company were quite flexible, which is a good sign for me, which is why I chose it. But how is working culture then in the US? So obviously you've done a few jobs on campus. What's that been like for you?
The one thing I focused on, I had multiple variety of jobs. So I was a student tutor for a while, and I really enjoyed that job. It gave me the aspect where I kind of aligned with my principal. I always liked a job that did not hinder my self-respect in some sort of way. And at the same time, it could elevate any sort of skill that I care about in the process. So yeah, like I was like, okay, teaching is something I like, I did in a way that you can translate your ideas and thoughts into words for another person that is struggling to get along with them. And it's always some sort of nice satisfaction when you have a positive impact on somebody. And that's why I liked the job. It was a different field. It wasn't too tiresome because you're not moving a lot. Another job that I had experience with is being an orientation leader. We're having to deal with all this new student stuff, all these international students. And in the same type of way, I enjoyed it being the guidance. All these new kids are nervous and they don't know what to do. They know what to go. International students, they're like, oh, where should I be? What classes should I do? And I was like, don't worry, bro. I want to be your big brother here. I want to guide you along. It's a good journey, Yeah.
Wow, yeah, that sounds like quite a rewarding role to be in as well, because from your lessons learned yourself, you can really kind of lean on that to help others kind of transition into it.
Absolutely. And then my current job at this point, I'm working something at a hospital related to the pharmacy field. So this is where I'm focusing on a career-based job, because obviously at the university level, all these jobs are for students only, and it's not a career-based type of thing. So you are expected to drop out of the job when you graduate, because it doesn't have to do with, we're not expecting you to stay,
Temp work, effectively, I suppose.
It's temporary work, we're expecting you to just have it as a part-time right now. We have positions for full-time employees that we'll deal with them later.
In terms of the American culture, from what you've exposed to, obviously you're quite sheltered in a college lifestyle. Have you done much traveling around the rest of the US? Have you seen other cities, other parts of North and South America since you've been there? What's that been like? Has it been to what you expect?
It was a little bit surprising. I've been to bigger cities, and I've just realized that bigger cities are much less safer on an aspect of things I was comfortably doing in Arizona that I wouldn't be doing in these other cities, because they're just bigger cities. They're not college focused, so you're more exposed to more dangerous people overall, So I've been to, for example, Los Angeles. I really did not. I was surprised compared to I forgot to mention I went to the US a couple of times when I was younger, like when I was a kid. But that's just for like random visits with my parents whenever my dad had a conference, go to Disneyland and so on, But so I've been to LA when I was a kid, and when I went older, like a few years ago, I was actually like more mature now. You're more able to be aware of how the scene is. And I was surprised by how dangerous it could seem like, the homelessness and all that is not something I'm used to back home. That's the homelessness aspect overall. I know the way I could just relate to it in a direct way is that you are able to do what you want. It's just like there's more risks when it comes to bigger cities, but there's also way much more fun along the way as well. So,
yeah, I guess there's more options, but yeah, more real people.
More real people. I like the word there. More real people there.
Is college kind of like a bubble in certain ways? It
is way much sheltered. You have your own campus police along the way, you're exposed to mostly teenagers, same age as you, so you're not like, okay, they're safe, yeah, as you said, like real people out there. It blows up the bubble, I thought I was handling everything all right,
Yeah. And then going on to food and things. So what's that been like experiencing American cuisine as opposed to Middle Eastern cuisine or North African cuisine, I suppose?
Personally, like I'll tell you the two parts to that. So there's a good part where, oh my God, I can way much more food variety. I had all these. I've tried like all the fast food chains back home. It's present there, like McDonald's, KFC, and so on, Burger King, all that. I've tried that before when I was home. I was never exposed to like a variety of Asian cuisines, a variety of Asian restaurants. Something that I was like, okay, this is a specific Korean restaurant. I never tried that. I was like Chinese food, So I did not get the differentiation between Japanese cuisine, Korean cuisine. So I was like, okay, this is different right now, and I enjoyed the depth into some types of that. And I'm personally a food lover myself. So if a restaurant is offering some new type of burger, I'm like, I'm definitely gonna try that. And in the US, when they say like things are bigger in the US, portions wise, that's actually very true, and I personally like that too. However, the disappointment for me was in the fast food chains. I thought, for example, that KFC is going to be the most delicious thing in the US. I thought this is where it is, and I was actually very disappointed that it wasn't that good at all. And it's not only that, most fast food chains are very not up to standard in the US compared to them in international cities, international countries. So I was like, what? I thought this is where the gold standard is, I couldn't believe it. Like the KFC story, I ordered it twice. Because the second time I was like, well, maybe the first time they just had a bad day. They weren't on point. Maybe this time it's going to be the real stuff. It was still that bad. And I was like, wow.
And if, have you done joined many sports teams or many social groups since living abroad or living in the US? Has that been a way in which you've managed to socialize with lots of different people?
Definitely, I'm a huge soccer player. I love soccer, watching soccer, playing all the time. So this was a way of meeting new people. Is by randomly meeting on Friday nights to play some soccer.
So what's soccer?
I mean, I got used to it right now because I'm in the US, so you caught me on that. I would always say football,
I know you're off.
I just don't have to be like there's some sort of words that I tell people here I play football and they think that I actually play American football. I'm like, no, I mean soccer. I just is my way of getting away from that initial awkwardness at the beginning. So I'm just like that. But yeah, playing football the whole time. That was very fun to do, especially during the COVID part. I forgot to mention that was something that I got ahead of. I actually was very surprised that Americans are really good at soccer. They're up to that level. They're very athletic, and I enjoy that. Kind of pushed me forward to being more athletic overall, and just going to the gym. A lot of people here work out. The obesity thing that they have an idea that the American culture is all about people are obese and stuff like that. I don't think that is that true. It could be out there, but teenagers are really fit,
Yeah, no, completely. I think it's probably quite polarized in terms of your people who are very health conscious and really care about themselves, and then maybe this other side of my experience in America. I'm with you. People are quite active and really do take care of themselves. But yeah, I guess the fast food restaurants are the reason why we have the other thing and the supersized stuff. But it's all. Yeah.
That's also fair. That's also true. I remember the first time when I was a kid and I went to the US the first time to grocery shopping, and I've seen all these Oreo flavors that I've never seen in my life before in Egypt. And I was like, Mom, I can't believe they have all these flavors in here. And my mom was like, yeah, that's why, because they're all fat. And I was like, okay, go on.
But it's great to hear that you're experiencing it differently, and probably giving you the stereotypes are being removed, so to speak. And like most things are, it's usually the minority which produces the stereotypes, which is probably why it's quite funny, I suppose. But yeah, is there anything else you wish to talk about in terms of your life being in the US from your experiences so far?
I always like to highlight the idea of how being an optimistic, open-minded person is something that I really am grateful for. And I'm just saying that a lot of the good things that happen to me, the good friendships that are just with me, are just based on random coincidence. And when you think about that, and you're like, oh my God, if I didn't go at this single time to play the soccer game, I would have never met that person. Well, that's just a random coincidence, And not only that, just that goes along with many things. The same way I mentioned earlier about me even knowing about this university from a random dinner with my friend back in high school. So I kind of always feel like you gotta always understand that life is very fair when it's being unfair to everybody. If you're having a lot of bad days, well, that's kind of fair if everybody else around you is having bad days as well. It's not only the rainy cloud is not only on you, it's on everybody. So that is fair. And the same way you can be like, okay, I'm having a good day. Well, that's something to look forward to. So it's a nice coincidence having the good and bad stuff at the same time.
Yeah, it's a balance, I suppose. Yeah. And you mentioned as well about your friend in high school. It's a sign that you do not know if you think about having a conversation with someone, that conversation could change the rest of your life. That could be a catalyst to something else. So you may as well do it. And if it doesn't happen, then you can always go back to where you were. That's the one thing I talk about with regards to living abroad is if you want to do it or you're excited about doing it and you're scared still, then you may as well try it. And if you don't like it, you can always go home or go somewhere else, or you'll grow from the experience. But if you don't do it, then you'll always regret it, I imagine, when you get older. So
I love that. I love that so much that you said that. And I was having this conversation with my friend a couple of nights ago, and I was telling him, if you do not do this this time, there's zero chance that you'll change. But if you actually go forward with it, there might be 1% that could happen. There's something that change. But if you just stay in, there's a zero chance. It's a guaranteed zero,
Yeah, completely. What a great way of ending the second part of the podcast with that wise, full anecdote of yours. And we'll see you in section 3. So hello and welcome to section 3 of the podcast, which is a kind of a review. There's no actual name for this, because if you've been listening to the podcast from the start, you'll hear me constantly say there's no name for this part of the podcast, but it's a review. So Omar, if you could kind of cast yourself back to when you were 17 and when you first arrived to the US, would you share some advice with yourself? Would you like kind of wish to change anything?
I would definitely wish to change a lot of things, but more from a perspective of, oh my God, that was so embarrassing, kind of. And it's only embarrassing right now because you've grew out of it. So I think that it's always a phase. And but actual things that I would change is being less aware of my environment. I'm realizing over time that people actually do not care what you do that much. So you shouldn't be that anxious. You shouldn't be that alert that everyone's watching, everyone that. So it kind of hinders you down if you're more confident in yourself. So I would say that. Other than that, I would have wished that I would have started working earlier. I feel like that would have filled up my time more, gave me a head start to my work experience. But other than that, I'm always, I would never say there's any regrets, to be honest. I'm always very proud of the journey. The learning curve was a very high learning curve for me.
No, completely. And I think every wrong turn we make always leads us to something else, and tells us not to make the same wrong turn again twice. You see the main lesson we learned, but without the wrong turns, life's a bit boring, right? So you need to make a few in order to have some stories to tell, which is, I guess, why we're talking now.
It's always say, every bad experience, no matter how dangerous it is, if you came out alive and everything, there's no like deadly consequences and no money consequences and everything, then that was just an experience. You have a story to tell. If you're in a bank heist and the bank robbers come in and they kidnap everything and they steal the money and run away, and you're just sitting there for 5 minutes, that's a hell of a story for the rest of your life.
Yeah. Maybe some PTSD as well. That's not an advert to be in a bank heist, by the way.
Oh yeah, that's not.
But no, I completely get your vivid pictures of it can seem bad, but actually for you on a personal level, maybe it's not so bad. But no, it's a good point, and I think if it was the old saying of the person who didn't fail didn't do anything, and you've got to really stand by that. If you don't make mistakes, you don't cock up. Why bother? What advice might you give someone who's leaving Egypt? So if someone got in touch with you and said, "Hey, I want to live abroad or study abroad, I'm from Egypt," what advice might you give them in terms of if they're similar age to you when you left, or even if they're a bit older? What might you share with them?
I would definitely emphasize on do not stick to the idea of just being friends to people from the same country or same culture as you. That's a big mistake that I see a lot of people do here. They end up talking the same language all the time. I wasn't that good with my English. I did not understand American cues, things that I had to learn over time. I was like, what does that mean? And I started joking wise, I had to build that up depending on the culture. So that only happens when you expose yourself, If you're stuck to the same comfortable circle that you're always used to, you're never going to grow out of that. There's, as you said earlier, there's zero chance to grow out of that. And you'll always be afraid to really take your own step out of that, because you're older, you're going to be more occupied. So that's one thing that I would definitely emphasize on. I would generally also emphasize on the way you present yourself. I personally believe your presentation of how you look, your style, your body is your resume, and that can go along the way. From a racial point of view, I was personally I feel like I had never really received any racism in my all 5 years, and that is based on the presentation look. So I always believe that people that admire something in another person, they will always have some sort of respect. If you see somebody athletically good, or they're good in a sport, or they're good in a subject, okay, no matter where that person is from, you'll some sort have a respect for them to learn from them. At least most people, that's what I feel like. That's what the presentation type of part, working on that protected me from any sort of racism that anybody else might have received. So, and the last part is never be lazy. I always emphasize on the idea of sticking to the plan. And what I mean by a plan, I don't mean some long-term poetry type of saying. No, I mean more of your daily objectives. Your daily objectives have to be multidimensional, versatile. I gotta do this. I gotta go to class. I gotta finish this podcast. I gotta go to the gym, then write this assignment. Go do my lawn. I mean, like, you gotta have many things that hang out with this person, and so on and so on. That you're like, okay, my day was a mess, but oh my god, it was a thrill. Because you've done with so many things at the same time, random stuff along the day. So that's something that I would do not just focus on schools. That's just boring. You're hindering a huge opportunity that you've paid so much money for to improve in qualities that are way much more important than a bunch of exams.
No, completely. I think university is, or any time in your life, really, even living abroad is more than just, you said, the piece of paper at the end of it, or the paycheck and the month if you're going for work. It's the opportunity to expand your horizons with learning a new culture, or learning a new anything really, sports or cuisine, or just starting fresh. You have the opportunity to rewrite yourself, you reinvent yourself if you wish to. Why not take the opportunity? Why not to be the person you wanted to be 10 years ago, and to remove the mistakes you had and all your friends don't know about, how you fell over when you were 12 or something, and everyone after you. It doesn't matter. That should be gone. You can be yourself.
It could be a totally different person, It could be your own video game avatar character. You're living in a video game, you know? You're the main character in the video game.
You should always be your own main character as well.
Yes.
Great to hear about the fact that you haven't experienced much racism. Was that something you were apprehensive of when you first moved? Was it something that you were worried about?
I kinda was like, well, I don't think I gave so many factors ahead. Like, obviously, if you're a girl and you're wearing the hijab scarf, you're kind of identifiable from away. From me personally, I did not obviously struggle from that. It was more like when somebody has to talk to me, they will notice an accent and so on and so on. But in my old college experience, I'm talking about just talking to students. Never in my life had any bad experience with that. You know, it was more always some sort of a curiosity whenever they asked about my accent. Oh, well, where are you from? You know, and that. So it was all more of a getting to know me type of questions. Even with outside university, even with areas outside Arizona, like in other states, I personally was always very perceived in a friendly way. So I just think it has to come down to the positive impact you're giving. Nobody will ever just be absolutely mean to you for no reason unless you give them some sort of trigger. That's just in my, you know, it's super rare, it's super rare to find somebody that's just a complete prick to you for no reason.
Yeah, it's a very good point. And I think not giving anyone a reason to be a prick is good advice. I guess lastly, what's your plan then? So how many years do you have left of school? Are you in your final year? Have you got a few more years left? Are you going to do a postgrad, or what do you want to do after college?
So I'm currently right now in my PharmD degree, which is like a graduate studies, and I'm in my third year out of my fourth year. So after I'm done with my fourth year, I'm planning to study a residency program, to join a residency side in a hospital setting, and hopefully once I get there, I wouldn't be a student anymore. So I think I should be figuring out my status in the US if I'm able to be offered something more than that. But my main objective really is to when you're on F1 visa, when you're done with your college, they give you 1 year of applying to work. You have so that's for everybody as well. Everybody on an F1 visa has the opportunity, and so that's where I'm going to be using it for my residency program. And hopefully after that, if I'm offered a job that can keep me on here, that'll be something I'm looking forward to. Other than that, always open to what's gonna happen after that. Being open-minded. Wherever I go, where I'm always open to going any country around the world. I just always have this fear of going back home and residing there. As I said, that kind of brings me back to where I was when I was 17. And it's just like in my head is some sort of a decline of progress. I need to get along with that more and to try to figure that out with myself in my head. But I'm more eager to explore the world, many cities, even not in Arizona, many other states. So open-minded, yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm sure your path will take you wherever you need it to go, wherever you kind of manifest it to go, based on the time you're in. But no, it's great. Thank you for sharing your afternoon, I suppose, or whatever time of day it is in Arizona now, late morning maybe. I forget how far behind you are. I think it's 8 hours.
It's 11:30 a.m. right now.
Oh, right, okay, yeah. Well, yeah, it's 6:30 for me, so it's 6:30. So yeah, I finished work like 2 hours ago. Bit of a different life. Yes, just thank you for getting in touch and giving me your time to book this podcast and have a chat, and being so open and generous with your stories and with your honesty and with your emotions. It's been very, very refreshing to hear, and an interesting story to experience. I had a student who's currently studying in the US yet, so it's a really cool experience for me to learn a bit more about that, especially as an international student in America. I really know a lot of my American friends who've been to the States, but they've not had that different lens. So yeah, thanks for sharing that. And would you like to share anything about your own work at all?
Nothing specific really. I just I'm starting to do more promoting on my Instagram. So I would really love to help out any student or anybody in their 20s or earlier than that they're struggling overall, so that they can contact me over Instagram. I would love to. I'm always open to that. And other than that, no, it was a very lovely conversation with you, man. I personally enjoyed this so much. You gave me a different perspective, and I really enjoy that. Appreciate that you gave me the spot, to talk about all that.
Always. Yeah, no. Every single person who's lived abroad has a story to tell. They don't believe they do. You've always got a different perspective. So yeah, really happy to hear yours and get your side of it. You may not feel like it's special, but to someone like me who's from the UK and lived in Sweden, you're from Egypt and lived in the US. It's completely different. It's for me, it's very interesting to hear, and you might even help someone else who's come from maybe not Egypt, maybe somewhere else in North Africa or somewhere else in the Middle East or an Arab country, moving to maybe Canada, not the US, but there's all those similarities which they can share from your story, which is amazing. So yeah, thank you. And if you have enjoyed the podcast and you have found something interesting, please do get in touch. Please do, let us know in the comments. And as always, please subscribe. We need more followers. But yeah, hopefully we'll see you next time for the Expert Pod.